Welcome to this screencast on social systems and ecological practice. The content in this PowerPoint presentation is taken from the book Modern Social Work Theory by Malcolm Payne, unless where indicated there is another author. So this presentation looks at two forms of systems theory. The first is general systems theory, and that's based on the idea that behavior is influenced by a variety of factors that work together as a system. Think about the environment. Think about what is important in your environment, and that may include your family relationships, your friends, the social setting where you live, work, and engage in recreational activities, your economic status, and the home environment, the environment where you participate in activities such as your church, mosque, or synagogue, as well as other factors that are very close to the things that you do in your life. The second systems theory is ecological systems theory. And ecological systems offers a framework which we as social work practitioners examine individual relationships and how the individual functions within their social setting, within their community, and within the wider society. Both of these systemic perspectives are used by other disciplines as well. But for us as social workers, we look at the individual in the context of the family, the home setting, friends, and other interpersonal relationships. We call that person in their social environment or person in environment. So for social workers, we emphasize how the individual interacts with their peers and with groups in their school, work, neighborhood, and community. And the third bullet is that social workers look at the individual's interconnections and interactions with service providers, with agencies, with organizations and institutions where they're participating in faith services, in hobbies, in recreation, in work, as well as in receiving services. The concept of person in environment, or PI, is basic, foundational in social work. So the person in environment perspective highlights the importance of understanding the individual in their own social context, which includes their behavior as well as how they function within their social and environmental settings. And using the PI perspective suggests that the environment shapes the person, and the person's social functioning influences the environment. So we call this a reciprocal action, where the person has an impact on their environment and the environment also impacts on the person. So it is both interactions. Person and environment perspective suggests that a person's problems, issues, concerns, challenges can be largely understood by social and environmental influences. This is really important. It is not to say that a person does not have personal problems, personal issues, but it acknowledges that the environment and the social context also has a role to play in whatever it is that we experience as individuals, both in the positives the opportunities that come our way, as well as the challenges that come our way. Social workers use a systemic perspective very often. It's part of our skill set as social workers. It's part of how we view our clients and the communities in which we work. Systems theory in social work is based on the idea that human behavior is influenced by a variety of factors that work together as a system. So there are interconnections between each of the factors within a system. Factors include family, friends, home settings, social settings, school, work, community resources, institutions, socioeconomic status, as well as a variety of other unique factors that are unique to each of us as individuals. So the idea is that the person and environment is embedded within a social context, and there are many factors that are having an influence on that individual. The theory posits that these and other factors influence how individuals think and act, and I would also add feel. Therefore, examining the social structures, the social systems, in order to find ways to correct what is not functioning well, what's ineffective, and help the individual adapt for whatever is missing within their social system, can positively impact behavior. For us, working with our clients means helping our clients gain a perspective on what's going on around them, helping clients to problem solve so that variables in their system are able to work better, and also helping our clients to find ways of changing whatever is going on for them in order to have a positive impact. So from the systems theory approach, social workers observe and analyze the many systems that contribute to the client's functioning, including their behavior and their well-being, in order to work towards improving those systems. This slide presents some of the important terms that are part of thinking systemically. So a definition of systems is that they are entities with boundaries within which physical and mental energy are exchanged internally and sometimes across the boundaries. So think of a social system, think of your family, for example. You may have one or two parents, or maybe more if you're in a blended family system. You may have siblings. Some of us have extended family in our social systems. So what is happening within our families? We're communicating, we're exchanging information, we're exchanging emotions. All of that is going on, as well as exchanging resources, food, shelter, clothing, etc. All of that comprises the physical and mental energy that is part of the definition of systems. So we exchange within the family system, and sometimes our family also has some energy that crosses the boundary. Examples of that may be some extended family, may also be relationships with neighbors or other important people that may have an impact on the system as a whole. The second term is energy, refers to actions, relationships, resources, and information that is exchanged within the system. You can also think of your workplace as a system. Think of your relationship with your coworkers, with your colleagues, with your supervisor or manager or director. So there is information, resources that's being exchanged within your place of work, as well as the work you actually do, the actions that you take as part of your responsibilities and duties. So you can think of systems as having application to many areas of your life. Your friends are also a social system. Think of the energy that's exchanged within your friend group or your peer group. The third terminology is closed systems. So when we think of a closed system, that means that it's kind of a tight system where the energy is mainly located within the system, and there isn't a lot of energy exchanged across the boundary of the system. And in contrast, an open system occurs when the boundaries are more permeable. So an example of a closed system may be a family that does not have much contact with their neighbors or extended family. The family may be isolated. Therefore, we would refer to them as a closed family system, where not much energy is exchanged with other families or other people in their neighborhood or community. In contrast, an open system occurs when there are energy exchanges, maybe that same family is functioning differently at some point, and they do have relationships with other people. They do include extended family. They have more relationships with others in their neighborhood and or community. They engage in community activities and so forth. Now, it is possible that a system can be too closed, too isolated, and a system can also be too open. So an example of a system that is too open is one where many people come in and out of the family, that there aren't any safeguards in place to protect family members from people who may not have the best intentions, or there is a lack of structure in the household where a lot of people are coming and going and there isn't much supervision of the children. It's also important to understand that systems are always striving for an equilibrium. An equilibrium refers to a stable maintenance of the system. So it's possible that a system can be too chaotic, too much going on, too much is overwhelming, not enough structure, so that the system doesn't function very well. So equilibrium or steady state refers to a balanced system where things are functioning well, where there is a sense of regularity, where if an unexpected event or crisis does happen, it's able to be managed and the system can return to a good sense of functioning. And then the concept or the term of differentiation is the idea that systems grow more complex with the addition of more components over time. So let's use the family again as a social system. So there are various examples of how the family system differentiates over time. One is the development of children within the family system. So as children begin to develop from, let's say, toddler stage or preschool stage to school stage, right? Children tend to gain more friends, begin to engage in more activities with the outside world, begin to form maybe relationships with other adults and engage more in groups. That's an example of differentiation because the family system has to accommodate to more of these activities and more of these relationships. That same idea continues onto adolescence, where the children may have even more activities, may be making more decisions about their education, may be engaging in more intimate relationships with others. So the system needs to accommodate for boyfriends or girlfriends, or the child going to college. So the family system needs to adapt and expand. And another example is when a child gets married. So all of a sudden there's a new family member that joins the family system. It's another example of differentiation. And then reciprocity is the idea that one part of the system changes. That change affects all the other parts. So think about the example that I just mentioned. When one child goes to college, it may impact on their siblings. All of a sudden, they may need to accommodate for that child not being home as much, and then the child comes home on vacations, assuming that the child goes away to college. So maybe the child that went away to college had responsibilities in the home that then will fall upon one of the other siblings. So that's the idea of reciprocity. A change in one part of the system will have an impact on other parts of the system. And reciprocity is also applicable to the way that the person in environment has an impact on the social environment, and the social environment also impacts upon the individual. So if you think about the social context and ways that reciprocity plays itself out, can think of the opportunities that are present in the social environment. So a child who's exposed to a lot of different ideas and options for engaging in activities and groups will also be influenced by those activities and the relationships that emerge from those activities, as well as that child will have an impact on the groups that he or she joins by their presence, by the energy they're putting into it, and by what they're contributing. So here is a diagram of a social system. So the circle represents the boundary of the social system. And remember that boundary can be very tight and closed, or it can be more permeable, where the energy exchanges within and without the social environment. So at the top of the diagram, you have the environment, which is all of those elements outside the system that have the potential to affect all or part of the system. Okay, so not everything in the environment is going to have an impact, and some of those elements in the environment are going to have a larger impact than others. Then on the left side of the system, you have the input, resources that are taken in or received from the external environment. The arrow means it enters into the system, and that process is called the throughput. It's the process of conversion or transformation of the resources within the system. It goes through the system into output, the work of the system that's exported back into the environment. And then at the bottom of the diagram, you have feedback, which is a continuing source of information concerning the relationship with the external environment that's used to make necessary changes in order to survive and grow. So let's apply an example, and let's just again use the idea of the family as a system. One important element of the environment may be the parent's occupation. So let's just choose one. Let's say mom works as a nurse. So her relationship with her work environment, whether it's a hospital or a clinic, is going to be an important aspect that has an impact on the social system, right? Mom goes to work, her work relationships, her engagement with her work may make her happy and may make her able to include the ways that she learns and grows and functions because she feels competent as a nurse. She knows she's doing important work. So the way that it impacts on the home system is that the children see a positive role model. Mom is working. She's doing important work. Her work is maybe going well. So she's able to work with her family in ways that the family feels a sense of harmony. The opposite of that is if mom has a job she doesn't like and is always stressed and has difficulty coping, may also bring that sense of stress and negativity into the home environment because her work environment isn't optimal. So the resources that she receives from the work that the whole family receives from the input are many, right? One example is that mom gets paid. So the resources of her paycheck are input into the system in the form of buying food, paying the mortgage or rent, buying other kinds of things, entertainment for the family, needed goods and services that will help the family system function better. So the money that she earns is transformed into goods and services. And then the output is that there's good nutrition in the family. Children are able to engage with entertainment and other kinds of services and goods, going to the movies or, cable TV, whatever it is. That's the output. So, I used money as an example, but let's go back to the emotions. So, mom has a good working environment. She knows she's doing good work. The input into that is that she's modeling for the family that she's a competent adult, that she can solve problems and issues that arise, that she's someone who can be depended on, that she provides security for the family. Right? So that's the throughput. The energy of her being a good role model is transformed into all of these positive aspects for the family. And then the output is that it impacts on all the family relationships, and it can help provide a sense of safety and security for the whole family. So the feedback is that mom's work environment and those relationships are also impacted by her family. So mom will need to balance work and family life. She'll need to manage, and problem solve in both of those areas. If one is out of balance, it may impact on the other. That's reciprocity. So I hope this example has given you a sense of what this whole social system is about. So we can further break down social work systems and social systems into 3 levels. And social workers, we often refer to the micro, meso, and macro level. And these 3 are interconnected. The micro level refers to individuals, families, and relationships. Those variables and factors that are closest to the person in their environment. The next level is a more medium level, includes the neighborhood, schools, work, community, neighborhood organizations, and groups that the person may be involved with. And the macro level are the larger systems, healthcare, policies that guide our life, such as educational policies, health policies, whatever services you're eligible for, laws and legislations, political subsystems, economic subsystems. So these 3 are: the micro level equals intra and interpersonal relationships, what's going on within the person as well as with those important and closest relationships. The meso level are groups and communities that are part of the person and environment's life and social context. And then the macro level are the systemic issues on a larger level of policies and larger organizations and institutions. Here is another slide that looks at the microsystem in more detail. It's the individual's primary system of influence, the immediate surroundings, the immediate connections and relationships. Typically involves personal relationships with the family and significant others. And for us as social workers, the micro level involves direct interaction with clients. We provide direct services on the micro level to the individual clients and maybe family that we're working with to address individual problems. The meso system, and you'll notice here it's spelled with 2 Z's. The other slide had it spelled with an S, M-E-S-O. You'll see it both ways. But the meso system is the linkages between the individual's microsystem and school, work, and peer groups and community resources. And meso-level social work addresses group interventions to focus on promoting change and increasing functioning and well-being for individuals and or groups. And the macro-level system are those larger systemic systems, which are depicted in the graphic on the slide. And macro-level social work involves interventions and advocacy on a larger scale that affect entire communities, help clients by intervening in large systems, and is larger than the macro or the meso environment. Sometimes we look at social work and we divide it up into micro or macro social work. In fact, these 3 levels are interconnected and work together. In our class, we will be talking about an example of applying the 3 levels to one case. So the ecological concepts that you need to know include the life course perspective that looks at how a person grows, changes, develops over time from infancy to older age. And it emphasizes the diversity of possible life paths and life choices that people make through their lives. So these are the continuous interactions and transactions among individual, collective, environmental, and cultural processes in human development and functioning. Culture is a really important part of a person's ecology. Not just culture in terms of race and ethnicity, but culture in terms of life choices, of one's self-identity, and basically everything that goes into how one lives their life. The idea of life stressors. There are multiple stressors that we all experience during our life. Making educational choices, starting college, starting a graduate school can represent stresses that we need to manage. Goodness of fit is also an important concept, or fit, F-I-T, describes the compatibility of a person's temperament, personality, and or needs with the features or resources of that particular social environment. So we can think of our environment and we can find ways where we're a good fit with our environment, or the environment is a good fit for us. We have opportunities, we have resources we can make use of that help us to function and to have well-being in our lives. And there may be some factors that don't support us as well. For example, if there's conflict in one area of our life or environment, that may impact our goodness of fit. And then some of our clients may live in environments that are actually detrimental to their health and well-being, maybe in terms of their housing or family dynamics or community dynamics. So goodness of fit needs to be analyzed according to the unique factors and elements of that person's environment. But we can think about whether the environment is a good fit or not. And then finally, social adaptation refers to the adjustment of an individual behavior to conform with the prevailing system of norms and values in a social context. And the idea of adaptation is really important. As individuals, we need to adapt to our environments in order to survive. So we'll be talking about adaptation more in class as well. And the final slide looks at resilience, risk factors, and protective factors. And I'm going to stop here with this presentation because we're going to pick up on resilience, risk, and protective factors in the next screencast.